the perfect formula for building wealth with real estate. Hi, I'm Phil Pustiovsky with FreedomMentor.com. I'm a full-time real estate investor, have been my entire career, mentor and coach to many of the most successful real estate investors all across North America, best-selling author to 2 books, How to Be a Real Estate Investor, and my newest one, Real Estate Investing Gone Bad. Also, thanks to you, this is the #1 YouTube channel on real estate investing in the world. And this formula of how to build wealth with real estate, it has 3 components. Real simple. First, cash. There needs to be incoming cash, extra cash, that then is converted, this is important, to high ROI, return on investment, real estate. So that's what the cash goes into. And then what that's going to equal, that's going to equal the wealth. All right, so let me show you what that looks like as it's illustrated. All right, so first, we're going to look at it in terms of a snowball. Winter time right now when I'm shooting this video, and for many in the northern hemisphere, you're buried in snow right now. I'm in Florida, so I'm not, but I know what it's like. Okay, so you've got this cash. All right, I'm going to try to make this kind of a smaller cash. And that cash is then turning into real estate. Not just any random real estate, as you know. It's this high return on investment. And we'll talk more about that here in the video. And then as that happens, it gives you more cash. As it gives you more cash, more real estate. And so then what ends up happening is it shoots off to make something even bigger. So now you've got a snowball that's getting even bigger, right? So you have your RE that's giving you even more money. And then now you've got even more money to buy more real estate, so now your snowball's getting bigger. Now you're getting even more as you get the idea. And this right here, as they say in engineering, the positive feedback loop, this right here is how it gets done. And the actual snowball in my illustration, that's your actual wealth. Okay? Now we're going to unpack this, and we're going to do it with help from a classic board game, Monopoly. This board game was invented in 1903 by Elizabeth Magie. In fact, it was called the Landlord's Game. It wasn't even called Monopoly until 1935 when Charles Darrow brought it to Parker Brothers and made a couple of adjustments to the original game. Interestingly enough, they called her Lizzie. She never made any money from her own invention. It was Charles Darrow that made all those royalties. So the way this game works is, if you've never played before, you start off with some money, and then you also can pass go to earn an extra $200, and there's a couple of other ways to make a couple of bucks as well. And your goal is to buy these different properties on the board, and then hopefully over time those properties pay you more money, which brings in more money, and then you can then eventually beat all of your competition by owning the most real estate and bankrupting everybody else. So you're starting off with cash. You're buying high ROI real estate. Let me explain. This is not a game of mere chance, as many people think it is. In fact, it is a game of strategy. You have to know which properties have the highest ROI. Let me give you a little secret. The railroads have a very high ROI. Your utilities do. These properties right here, especially the orange and the red, because the cost versus how much you get back is pretty strong. You don't want to deal with these right here. They're the most expensive on the board, but they have the lowest ROI because people sometimes go to jail and skip that whole zone right there. Sometimes people pick up cards and skip directly to go. So it's this run right here, these 3 that are better, and then from a mathematical standpoint, your oranges and your reds are the absolute best. All right, just gave you a big secret so you can beat your family now. By the way, sorry it says Nintendo on here. I have a bunch of different theme Monopolies that I play with my 6-year-old daughter quite a bit, and this was the one that was closest. Okay, so if you're a Robert Kiyosaki Rich Dad, Poor Dad book fan, he has mentioned, at least in his book and some of his trainings, that his original rich dad, Richard Kinney, that he had a formula of 4 red houses and 4 green houses and 1 red hotel. Now this game, of course, has the colors different, but you got your houses and your hotel. The way it works in Monopoly is, if you get 4 houses on a property, you then can trade up to put in a red hotel. Now, as I will explain here in just a moment, that's not really the full formula that Richard Kimmy used. He used this formula right here, the original Rich Dad did, to build his wealth. But that may or may not be a good idea because it may not be the highest return on investment. It may not be the highest ROI for each specific situation you're dealing with. The key here is that your cash is being converted into hard assets which have a high ROI in comparison to all the others, and then that way you're slowly but surely building a whole lot of wealth. All right, so we're going to go through each section now: cash, ROI, and wealth. Because you might be telling me right now, Phil, this is a game, and this game starts off with $1,500, and I just graduated from school, and I didn't start off with a bunch of money in my bank account. I understand. Neither did I. So we'll talk about that right now. Cash is critical to making this formula work. Now, if you watched a lot of my other videos, you might be saying, wait a minute, Phil, you even have videos that talk about how to buy real estate without cash or credit. That's true, but typically what those kind of deal structures are used for is for short-term money, which leads me into how did I get this formula going when I got started homeless? Well, I did it by creating cash, big hunks of cash, by flipping houses. Okay, and I have a bunch of videos on this topic. I still do this today, and I also mentor and train others. I call them my apprentices, and I split profits with them, so I'm flipping houses with them as well. So I create big chunks of cash with flipping houses, and then that's way more than what my expenses ever were, and they are today. And so what happens is I'm able to take that cash and buy high ROI real estate. Okay, but you don't have to be a full-time real estate investor for this formula to work at all. Instead, let's go back to the example of Rich Dad, the original Richard Kimmy. What did he do? Well, he started a series of Army surplus stores right after World War II. And that's when there was a whole bunch of military supplies available. And he took that money and he bought real estate with it. And then he took all that real estate and he sold it, and he built, and it was a big gamble at the time, he built a hotel in Hilo, Hawaii, on the big island of Hawaii. And that was a gamble because nobody thought that anybody would ever want to stay there as opposed to going to Honolulu, but he dropped the prices low enough to make it work, and he ended up creating a huge hotel chain in Hawaii. All right, but it all started because he had, here's the key, he had a business. All right, and so that's the main place to generate cash, is if you have a business. And it doesn't have to be real estate. It can be any business that's productive. Now, what I've noticed about business in my career is this. Business tends to be great for producing this, lots and lots of this, but not always producing long-term wealth. Because what's hot today might be cold tomorrow. But business can generate hot cash quickly in relative terms versus the long-term play that hard assets like real estate give you. So if you are building a business right now, or you want to be in business, that could be a great way to get this whole thing moving, because the cash that gets thrown off from your business can then be thrown into this wealth formula. Make sense? Okay, so another thing is if you've got a great profession. Many of you have a wonderful profession. Maybe you went to school for 8 years and you now are making great income. In those situations, that's another example of you got the cash being thrown off. I can't tell you the countless stories of attorneys and doctors and corporate middle managers and great salespeople and those that are high income earners taking the cash and throwing it into high ROI real estate. So that right here is the first key. You got to generate cash. I mean, some people generate their cash in real estate by just being real estate agents. I mean, there are top producing agents these days that are making $1 million a year. So one way or the other, you got to have a cash machine. You got to have something that is your passing go in collecting $200. High ROI real estate is the next part of this formula. Monopoly does such a great job of showing you this. Remember I talked about how Boardwalk, how that property is the most expensive, but it actually has a very low ROI. But then you have something like the railroads, and the railroads have a very high ROI. It's not always what's the prettiest. It's not always what's the most glamorous that produces the highest return on investment. Now, I have a wonderful video called How to Turn a Little into a Lot. There's a part 1 and a part 2. It's one of my favorite videos I've ever shot. I want you to click on it. I'm going to put a little thing right here so you can click on it. And if you haven't seen it, please watch it. That talks about the difference between traditional and creative real estate And my belief is the highest ROI real estate deals are typically structured creatively. Typically. I mean, sometimes you can pull off an amazing ROI deal as a traditional one, but almost never. And so what happens is, if you master generating cash, then you master how to locate and structure these high ROI real estate deals, and this is how you hit this wealth formula. And so again, there are many different ways to pull this off, but the key is you got to get into deals with as low of a down payment as possible, but as much of an upside, as much of as a cash flow. And that's what I want to point out here. When I talk about ROI, I'm talking about cash flow. So if you put $10,000 in, how long does it take to get that $10,000 back? Let me give you quick math. If you put $10,000 in and you got $100 a month positive cash flow, that's $1,200 a year, that's 12%. Not very good. I shoot for a minimum. My minimum is 25% cash on cash return. And then actually the returns get a lot bigger because, as you will see from another video I've put together called How to Increase Your Net Worth with Real Estate, I talk about the fact that real estate itself is the ideal investment. First, we have the income I was just talking about. That's the cash flow. But that's just the cash on cash return. Then you have this thing called depreciation, which means that you get a phantom expense. It's not coming out of your bank account, but it's an expense on the tax return. And it reduces the income, which means reduces your tax bill, but you still have the income in your bank account. It's amazing. All right, then we have what's called equity. So if you buy the property right, you have instant equity. Right when you bought it, you have instant wealth as soon as you bought it. Then you have appreciation. Now this one's a little sticky because we don't always know when that's going to happen. If the market isn't just in the complete doldrums, sometimes you can have huge appreciation as the market comes back up. But if you buy it at the top of the market, you may not get the appreciation. But even if you don't worry about that. And then last, of course, we have leverage. And which, when I was talking about creative investing, that's when you can get the best leverage, because you can potentially acquire properties without even having to get a bank loan. You're either going to take it subject to, owner financing, and those sort of creative techniques. So real estate in and of itself is the ideal investment, in my opinion. And furthermore, if you go with the high ROI version, you're that much better. And putting that positive feedback loop in your favor over and over again builds this snowball effect where you build your wealth. Now, how I've built it, like I described to you earlier, I created all my extra cash by flipping houses, and then I turned that into the high ROI real estate, and that's what's built my wealth. Now, that's what we teach others. That's what we do in our apprentice program. We teach them how to not only create extra cash from flipping houses, but how to find the best ROI real estate. Some of the people that join our program, they just need cash right now and lots of it. Some people have the cash, but they really want to do this right. And so either way, that's where we fit in. That's how we help. And so when you apply this formula, you are going to produce extraordinary results over time. But obviously it presupposes some big major items. Number one, that you can generate that extra cash. And number two, you know how to identify and take down the high ROI real estate deals. But once you get there, you've achieved that wealth. That right there, ladies and gentlemen, is the perfect formula for building wealth with real estate. People have been doing it for literally centuries, and you can do it too. All right, if you have any more questions or want to add any comments to this, what you can do is you can go to the bottom of this video and you can make some comments, and I try to carve out time to answer those questions for you. Also, you can head over to my website, freedommentor.com, grab one of my books or both of them. You're going to absolutely love them. Watch some more of these videos. I think you're going to draw a lot of conclusions on how you can, number one, make more cash, and number two, pick up high ROI real estate deals by watching more of my videos. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you on the next video.